And Laura, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Are you kidding? How great.
Oh, I mean, there is so much to talk to you about in terms of, when it comes to film and music. And can I just say, like, kind of just kudos to you for setting up the Alliance for Women Film Composers as well, in terms of something I really try and do as much as I can on this podcast is kind of really give the female composers a voice and a platform. And we've been lucky that we've done some live events where we've recorded things at the BFI and things, so it's been great. So yeah, it's wonderful when you hear of great things that people are doing like yourselves.
I think, it's funny because I've been thinking about this a little bit today, in an odd context, which I guess I won't share, but I think that people don't think of composers looking like this. And I
What
think
you mean,
that
awesome?
thank you. But I mean in every part of what this is, I think that there is kind of a vision, or has been. It's the same thing. Like my wife's mother teaches a course in science. She's a professor, a very high level professor. The first day of an undergraduate class, she asked them to draw what they think a scientist looks like, and they all draw Einstein, the women too. So it's just this, it like what you're doing in terms of getting, a diverse group out there and people to see and hear um what we are, what we do, is really, really important, because we've just got to broaden that perspective and continue to do so.
Absolutely. And congratulations on your
Thank
Oscar
you.
nomination as well.
I know it's so
Woo!
crazy. I know. Like literally, Nora and I looked at each other this weekend, my wife and I, and it was just like, oh my God, we've been running around like, just doing things like shopping, figuring out what I'm gonna wear, all that kind of stuff. And then like this weekend was the first weekend where we kind of like, oh, it's big. It's very big.
It's
It's
so
very big.
deserved. It's such
Thank
a
you.
and it's do you know
Thank
what's
you.
wonderful as well? I mean, I really want to hear about your kind of journey with Cord in the film, and
Yeah.
in that it's such a big part of the experience of watching the film. It's so
Thank you.
important to the way that the film makes you feel, and the way that you travel through the film, and the emotions that you feel throughout the film. It's such an important character in the film. So congratulations.
Thanks so much. I mean, this journey that I've been on with composing for film has always been fascinating, mostly because of this bond that you have with the audience, where the audience kind of, for some reason, and I've never figured out why, expects music, right? It's like when music starts in the back of a conversation or in a scene or whatever, it's not like, oh my God, what's that? It's something that's expected as part of the vernacular of filmmaking. And it's so cool to be able, it's not so cool. It's a life's work to figure out how to really, you know, support the emotional resonance of a film with music. It continues to interest me very much.
So how did American Fiction come to be presented to you, and what were the sort of first conversations you had about what they were looking for, what Cord was looking for? Was he very specific, or yeah, talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, it all started out in the way that many sort of unsuccessful attempts to get a movie started out, and that my agents said, "Will you make a reel up?" Meaning, will you put together music that seems appropriate
Mm.
for a quote unquote jazzy movie? So I put together a reel. And then and I put jazz on there, right? Just like some really cool stuff that I'd done that was really straight out jazz. He said, "No, not jazz, jazzy." And so okay. So kind of film scorey jazz. So then I did that, and then they liked it. So but I think also what happened that I think was maybe more powerful than all of that is that I have been scoring the Marvels for director Nia DaCosta, and Nia and Cord were friends, and I think Cord really to Nia, and Nia said she's great. And so that's the funny thing. It's like a twist and turn. You never know how something is going to come to you or how you're going to get involved. And working on the Marvels, which on the surface seems like such different kind of content. It's a huge movie, it's big budget, it's big orchestra, and then this is a little gem. So it was it happened that way. And I met with Cord and the team, Ben LeClaire and Hilda Retzla, who's the editor, and we just started talking about what the possibilities were for the music in this. And of course, jazz was, I don't want to say the mandate, but was the obvious thing. I mean, the lead character's name is Thelonious Ellison, and his nickname is Monk, and of course that takes you right to Thelonious Monk, one of the great composers and jazz pianists. And so then you really start to think about, okay, do we do Monk? Is it a departure from Monk? How can we capture the essence of Monk? Do we want to capture the essence of Monk? And so those are all the conversations that started happening.
That's amazing, isn't it? Because it's kind of it's, I don't know, did you then have a conversation about what it was about what you'd originally sent over that he connected with and stuff as well? Because it is interesting, isn't it, that whole idea of like people's interpretation of a story or a character or a narrative or themes. It's kind of everybody's perspective initially is different. So, but you had one specific, idea and connection that was the kind of opening of the door to then go and to be part of this whole project.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I first screened the film, and I did so alone before I had the job, they had put one of my pieces in as temp, and I thought, oh, okay, well, that's a good sign. That means something worked for them. But really, it's a very interesting project to score, because it's not as obvious as it might seem. It's actually pretty hard. Basically, the temporary score was all classic jazz, and when you hear those songs, they feel great. They're things that I'm so familiar with. They're beloved pieces of music. But the problem is, of course, they're not, specifically crafted for the film, and the film changes emotions very quickly. So you have to be really musically gymnastic, right? You've got to be able to go from like, a tragedy to neutral to comedy very, 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 very fast. Within there's one scene in the film where there's a very sad moment. I'm just going to spoil it because everybody needs to go see the movie. There's a funeral, and you're in this kind of funeral scene, and then this guy walks across in a and is a pest, and immediately you have to change course and score. You've got to go from something that's very sad to something that's kind of comedic. So it needed to have a score. So then the question is, well, how can you do a score, and how can it feel like jazz, but also be able to do all the things that a film score has to do?
Absolutely, because I feel like almost that kind of like free form nature of a lot of it is really replicates the kind of almost free form emotion that comes with all the different storylines that are going on in a way, in terms of, when you have Sterling's character kind of Clifford pop up, or, the kind of Tracy's character, and then she's gone, and all, it's kind of like it's so, the whole thing is so unique and kind of, and I didn't know much about the film before I watched it, about a month ago now, but it kind of like, it's so stayed with me, and kind of the rhythm of it, and the kind of just the unique nature of it as well. And I think so much of that is down to the fact that the music is there, and it's not kind of low in the mix. It's kind of, it's kind of, it's like, I'm here, and I'm here for a reason, kind of thing.
I'm here for you, fans. I'm here for you. No, look, the key to the whole thing was two major themes, which is the Monk's theme, which is the which is kind of craggy, which is a 5/4 meter, an odd meter, and it's got the humor, and it's got the quirkiness of Monk in this particular context. It also goes to someplace kind of beautiful. so that when we get to his romantic life with Erica, with Coraline, it can transform into that. And then the second theme is the family theme. And the family theme is what really hangs you together, because you're right, you have the switch, right? You have Tracy, and then you have Sterling, you've got Lisa, and then you've got Cliff. So you have to have something that ties it together. And of course, what ties it together is this fractured but fundamentally deeply connected family. So the family theme runs through all of that, runs through the stuff with Tracy, and then all the stuff when Cliff comes on and takes you into the pool scene, which is the family theme, is a bossa nova, and so and I think the reason I think the score does what it does, what we wanted, and I think what accomplishes, thankfully, is that it does feel like jazz, but it's highly, highly thematically oriented, highly, highly planned, and tied together in a really structural, almost formal way.
Yeah. Was this the kind of, in terms of, you've got such a beautiful, varied collection of work that you've worked on, not just film, but all the other things that you've done up to this point in your career. But jazz is very much, at the heart of a lot of that. So was this a sort of, dream scenario in a way, in terms of being able to bring all that to this particular medium?
Yeah, I think it really was. We have a joke around here in LA, which is that, don't let the jazz police come out and get you. It's like for those of us who've kind of grown up and trained in jazz, sometimes you need to mitigate that a little bit, or at least cover it up so people don't know. But on this one, I could be loud, proud, and and out loud about jazz. And it's funny because we were talking about the Marvels. There's one of the major characters in the Marvels is the villain, and for the villain, I really wrote a jazzy thing, but I don't think anybody perceives it that way. But in the end credit, I had Elena Penderhughes, who was the flute player in American Fiction, like literally jam over this da dee da da bo ba, she's like playing all over the place. It's wow, that's wacky. And I remember when we got through the playback of the film, and Kevin Feige, of course, is in the room. He said, "Oh, it's so great to hear that theme in its full blown thing." And I thought, "Oh my God, I got all this way without him noticing that there's like big time jazz in the, secretly hidden in the context of like, scary music." But yeah. So it sneaks in a lot of places, but in this place, I could be really very, very on the surface about it.
I also loved the What If series as well. I just thought
Thanks.
that I've got two boys, and we were kind of obsessed with that. It's such a great concept. It's such a great idea, because kind of gives your brain the opportunity to kind of go places with all these characters and
Right.
worlds and planets and universes that we know. It was so clever.
But it's the same thing, like everybody thinks that, I mean, not everybody thinks, but, there's this whole concept that, you're doing an independent film and then you're doing this for Marvel and it's so different. It's not. I mean, What If is thematic too. You've got, Peggy Carter and how she relates to Captain America, and and so what's the musical thematic material that's associated with that? It's much the same journey that we take with the Ellisons in American Fiction. I mean, Marvel is also a family in its odd, very dysfunctional way at times, I suppose, if you talk about people like killing each other, whatever. But anyway, it's but we digress. I love the MCU as well.
Yeah, it's wonderful that you're able to kind of straddle so many worlds in terms of kind of what you create for, whether it be a big Marvel production, or whether it be video games, or whether it be kind of stuff for like BBC Studios or American Fiction, all that kind of stuff. It's great that you can kind of navigate all these different worlds. Never a dull moment, I imagine.
Well, I'll tell you, there's actually a reason for that. And this would be the first time that I've said this in any of the many interviews that I've done this fall. That, for a lot of women composers and a lot of underrepresented composers too, not just women,
Mm.
the walls are tall, right? And they've been very, very hard, impossible to break down. You can't break down the wall, but there is something you can do, is that is you can walk around it. And so basically my life has been, as a music maker, a series of pivots. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to be sort of open-minded and to be capable of navigating the pivots that I've had to make. Now, I love writing music for video games. We're doing 2 games right now. It's super fun, and it's got different technical challenges. Video games came out of a pivot that I made, some 20 years ago
Yeah.
when I was working on television movies, and they kind of went away. And so you've got to figure out how to do the next thing. And so it's not like a building block. It's not like a step up, step up, step. It's like, will you do this? And it's like, okay, let's do that. Let's go around this. Okay, let's do that. And so I think that I've been, now it's culminating in really a kind of an excellent year of doing a lot of different things. And then because they've been high visibility projects, people have noticed, but this is something that I've been doing for a long time, and a lot of my colleagues also from other underrepresented groups have been doing as well.
And in terms of like, you as a performer as well, performing your music, do you get the, do you get enough opportunity to do that? I mean, one of my favorite things is, is going to live playback sometimes, of when you get the opportunity to be in a theater, and you've got an orchestra there playing the score. Occasionally I get the chance to go down to Abbey Road or Air
Mhm.
Studios to watch the orchestra being recorded. And then sometimes, just now and again, the film companies will, pay out for an experience for people to come and watch a few suites be performed and things like that. And any of those opportunities are just joyous.
Oh yeah.
um but for you, do you get the opportunity to, I mean, outside of this kind of, the moving image world as well, of performing, how important is that for you?
It's a really, really funny question, another question that I haven't been asked. So, we had the privilege of recording at Abbey Road this year, and it was absolutely divine, the best musicians in the world. Um, and a lot of I've always been sort of uncomfortable with performing, but I've always secretly wanted to do it. And I remember when I was a student at Fontainebleau, and I was in France, and I was studying with Nadia Boulanger at that point, right before she died. And I met a guy, and he was a pianist, and he said, "Well, come to Paris." And and so I took the train with him, and we went to the left bank, and we first went to a little tiny club, and I started singing. And then he said, "Let's go someplace else." And then we went to this huge club, and there were all these people, it felt like there were 2,000 people in the audience. Maybe there were like 300 people, and I started scat singing, and I couldn't remember any of the words.
Amazing.
And it was just amazing. It's one of the best memories of my whole life. I was 19 years old. It was great. And a week ago Thursday, we performed some of the music from American Fiction, and I took the mic and sang along with it just for fun,
Yeah.
just to see what it would be like. And it was really fun. And this project has been very, very special for me, because I have done a lot of playing and performing in it, almost not on purpose. It was like, because Cord was a first-time director, it
Mm.
was really important to me that all the demos sounded good, because he hadn't had that experience of listening to kind of, stuff where you say, "Oh, don't worry, we'll record it later, and we'll do all that stuff." I wanted everything to sound good off the bat, so then he could decide whether it worked for him with picture or not. It wasn't like, "Oh, this will really work later." that kind of thing. So we just started recording a lot. And because the piano's right there and because I have fingers, I sat down and I played a lot of stuff. And then it became kind of a thing. And for the stuff that I really didn't like my own playing on, I brought in Patrice Rushen, who's just an amazing, amazing player. And then I had this band of people I've worked with for a while, plus Elena Penderhughes. But we've been out performing it a little bit, and I'm going to do more of it. And
Come to the UK and
it's
do it.
fun. It's fun. It's really fun. It's like, I don't know. I have a mixed relationship with it because I'm so used to kind of being on my own and quiet at home, and then you go out there, but I think I like it.
You've got like an entire wall of instruments behind you that you need to
Yes,
take
I
out
do.
and
I
play in
do.
front
I
of
do.
a public.
I think maybe I won't play any of those in front of people. Like there's a PVC saxophone in there. I think probably should not be touched, but the piano and a little bit of singing here and there, maybe I'll do that.
It's crazy when you say about this film being Cord's first feature
Yeah.
film. That is insane. The achievement of it is just
Yeah.
extraordinary, really. It's that must
Well, he's super smart, it wasn't like working with someone who didn't know what they were doing. I mean, he knew what he was doing.
yeah. It's so accomplished. Just in terms of also just you can feel the kind of the freedom that the cast have been given as well to kind of really flesh out those, not that they needed it because the script I imagine was brilliant, but just kind of that's part of bringing in great talent into to roles, is because they're going to bring something to that, and they just, I mean, it's so fantastic to watch. It really is.
It's so true. Yeah. And I think the thing that Cord did is that he surrounded himself by really good people. He let those people do what they do well,
mm,
and then he would shape it. And that's what any great director, executive producer in television, what good makers of film do. They bring in the right people, let them, do their thing, really, and then decide whether it works for them or not.
I mean, Jeffrey's one of those kind of beautiful talents that throughout, whether he's in I mean BT in the Hunger Games, or any role that he's kind of, he just, he's so captivating to watch, and it's just wonderful to see him in this kind of lead, and and him kind of just, oh, it's great. He's wonderful on screen. I wondered if his,
He's
oh, sorry.
controlled, no, I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you. He's like, that's what I love about his performances, is he's there, he's just commanding, and he really, and every one of his gestures, everything he does means something. And as a composer, that's really, really powerful, because if he raises an eyebrow, if he moves his mouth or tilts his head, he's a physical actor, but his motions are small. So it's kind of like how it gives you something to dance with and to play with.
Were you very much kind of that when when you were working on those kind of final pieces of music, were you very much right into performance then as well, I guess?
Yeah, really, really we were, because it's there's a lot of dialogue in the movie, and I started to think about, especially Erica Alexandra, who plays Coraline, and Jeffrey. I mean, they sound like saxophones. Erica's got this kind of edge to her voice, almost a break in it, that sounds like the way Coltrane would play, and Jeffrey, of course, has a resonant baritone. So oftentimes you would have like an alternation between the sax or the flute, and then the rhythm section would back Jeffrey or Erica, and then we would come back into the band. So I did think of them as being a part of our group.
That's so great. I love that. That's so brilliant. You need to name some instruments after them. That's the
Yes,
next thing. Yeah.
I will.
You said you're working on a couple of games as well at the minute. What about in terms of other projects, in terms of film and TV? Have you got? I imagine you got some other stuff potentially on the go, or?
Yeah, we do. We've got the 2 video games. I've got another film that's going to be coming up quite soon. And then I'm also working, really excited about this, on a musical that basically we have licensed the rights to a film called Dance Girl Dance. It was directed by Dorothy Arzner. You probably don't know who she was, but she was the only woman directing in Hollywood during the Golden Age. And in this film is Lucille Ball and Maureen
I know
O'Hara.
her.
I see you looking her up.
Yeah.
She's massive and she is totally unknown. So we've gotten the rights to this fantastic movie. We're going to musicalize it and then weave her story as a woman working in Hollywood in the 40s and an out, lesbian at the same time, living her life and being, one of the go-to directors in Hollywood.
That's fantastic. I love
Yeah.
those films that kind of unearth those things. I mean, I really enjoyed Babylon, Damien Chazelle's film. I love that kind of how, and he's another one who loves his jazz. I mean,
Yeah.
Whiplash for me, that's the thing. Is like I find with certain films, the world of jazz is one that I don't know enough about, but there are sometimes, but I love film, and when film kind of like welcomes me into that world in a way, it's just, whether it was Birdman or Whiplash, and now your film as well, it's just kind of like, oh, I want to know more. I want to be part of this gang because this is great. It makes me feel awesome. So it's so great when film can kind of really give you a kind of an insight or a kind of connection, or hold out an arm to you, pull you back into that world. It's lovely.
I think there's so much of a history of jazz with film. I mean, so many of the composers in the 60s, Lalo Schifrin, Elmer Burns, Michel Legrand,
Yeah.
John Williams at that time were really writing a jazz, Henry Mancini. How could I forget him? That this was kind of the essence of what the like so many scores really
Sorry.
played with. No, no worries. So many scores really played with this idea of jazz and film music. So it's not a new concept, it just is one that we haven't heard a lot out of in the past few years. I mean, with the exception of, you're right, Damien Chazelle stuff.
Yeah. Laura, it's so great to chat to you, and I'm so
Thank you.
excited to see what's next. I hope you bring your performing self to London and give us
Oh,
a
I
little
want to.
rendition for sure.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
get to Ronnie Scott's on there in Soho and do a little performance for us. That would be amazing.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, and I really appreciate your time, and I wish you all the best of luck and huge congratulations
Thank you so
on this
much.
wonderful project. It really is quite fantastic.
Edith, thank you so much for having me on.
Great to chat to you.
You
Take
too.
care. Bye.